Tom Brady is without a doubt one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, and some would argue that he is the best of all time. Whether you believe that or not, there's no disputing Tom Brady is one of the most fascinating figures in sports history. He's quite divisive, both for good and bad reasons. So today we're going to discuss, with facts, if Tom Brady is overrated or not. Tom Brady is the most overrated player in football history. Perhaps this statement strikes you as counterintuitive, and if you grew up in Massachusetts during the Brady-Belichick dynasty's rule, you most likely despise it. To call Tom Brady the most overrated player is an understatement. This judgment seemed unthinkable after a cursory glance over his resume. Brady, who was taken 199th overall in the 6th round of the 2000 draft by the Patriots, began his career with a chip on his shoulder. The next year, he would replace former first-round pick Drew Bledsoe as the starting quarterback and win the Super Bowl. In the 20 years since, he's racked up a slew of NFL records, including the most touchdown passes, fourth-quarter comebacks, game-winning drives, games started, and passes completed in the Super Bowl. He's also on pace to break the throwing yardage and completion records. There's also the reality that Tom Brady is the most successful quarterback in NFL history. In both the regular season and the playoffs, no other NFL player has won as many games. Not only has he won more Super Bowl rings than any other person, but he has won more than any NFL franchise. This nearly unfathomable level of winning has fueled a discussion about Brady's legacy that not only places him above all other quarterbacks on the pantheon of greatness, but above all other NFL players and even above all other American team sport athletes. Given all this, how could one dare to claim that Tom Brady, the so-called greatest of all time, GOAT, is in fact the most overrated of all time, MOAT? Well, it's important to understand what exactly it means for one to be overrated. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person in question is bad at what they do. They're overrated if they receive undue praise for their accomplishments in a given field. Therefore, the most overrated football player of all time would be the one who has received the most undue praise for his accomplishments on a given field, the football field. That is, and that description fits Brady to a T. Tom Brady, as his sixth-rounder status suggests, is conspicuously lacking talent. Anyone with the slightest knowledge of Brady's origin story knows of his infamous combined performance, specifically his abysmal 5.28-second 40-yard dash. Given the course Brady's career has taken, this episode is now an inspirational anecdote, but it must be noted that his physical limitations remain, and they stand in marked contrast with the athletic prowess of his rivals. This matters because it means there are things that Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes can do, scrambling, rushing, throwing across the body, etc., that Tom Brady simply cannot. Meanwhile, Brady does nothing beyond the facilities of Rodgers and Mahomes. As a result, there is a respectable contingent of football commentators who, even if they recognize Brady as the greatest quarterback ever, recognize another, usually Rodgers, as the best or most talented ever. Why make this distinction? One can have the greatest career, but someone else can still be better overall when it comes to talent. What do you guys say? Are we right in this? Skip Bayless, America's favorite sports show demagogue and Brady's most vocal champion, calls only two athletes by their full names: Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. and Michael Jeffrey Jordan. This comparison is dubious. While Jordan has earned his BOAT, best of all time status, the same cannot be said for Brady. Even more damningly, Tom Brady's winningness, the very foundation of his legacy, is predicted less on his relatively meager merits as a football player and more on a stupendous, unprecedented career-long lucky streak. Brady isn't the GOAT or the BOAT, but rather the LOAT, luckiest of all time. It isn't merely that he went from playing for the greatest NFL coach to ever hold a clipboard to enjoying the services of the most talent-laden receiving corps in the league. No. What's most important is that more than half of Brady's Super Bowl victories were only achieved by the virtue of one outrageous fluke or another. For Super Bowl 36, it's the Tuck rule. For Super Bowl 49, it's Pete Carroll snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory by not running the ball on the 1-yard line. And for Super Bowl 51, it's the Falcons handing the Patriots the game after going up 28-3 in the fourth quarter. And for Super Bowl 53, it's Brady's overtime interception in the AFC Championship game being called back on a penalty that had no bearing on the play. Throw in the many instances of Brady winning playoff games despite playing egregiously below par, the most recent example being his 3-interception showing in the second half of the last NFC Championship game. and it becomes evident that his resume is riddled with holes. None of this is to say that Tom Brady has played no part in his team's remarkable successes over the years, and it certainly isn't to say that he's no good. However, in the context of what he has and hasn't achieved as a football player, the near ubiquitous praise of him as the greatest ever makes him indubitably the most overrated player of all time. But on the contrary, there are a lot of reasons people have to still love Tom Brady, such as the Tom vs. Time miniseries from last year gave fans a great insight into the life of this legendary QB1. He's been playing at the top of his game for 2 decades now, and for those of you wondering exactly how he's managed to do that, this series is for you. Another reason fans have to love him is that when you hit 40 years old in this game, more often than not, something of a gradual decline begins. For whatever reason, that just hasn't happened with Tom Brady, and he's proving to all of the veterans out there that it's possible to keep the train rolling for a little while longer. And not to forget about his wife, if we were to say that Tom married her well, that would be an understatement. His wife Gisele Bündchen is loved throughout the world, both for her looks and her infectious personality. Whether they're shown together, it's clear to see that they're meant to be, and we're really happy for him. And as we all saw, Brady's recent appearance on the Living With Yourself series on Netflix is a perfect example of why it's important to laugh at yourself every now and again. You can also say that Tom is a funny guy, and when given the opportunity to showcase that, he knocks it out of the park. Kudos to him. And finally, we must praise him as he is Tom Brady, who is an exceptionally talented football player, and that's just the way it is. The guy has an unbelievable arm, great vision, and possesses a mind for the game that few others do. That's what he'll be remembered for when it's all said and done. And so he should be. Haters may hate, and lovers can love him, but these were stats we had to reveal. Now you can decide for yourself and tell us in the comments below. If after hearing all of this you still believe he is overrated, or do you think he deserves it? So, that's the end of our video. We hope you liked the content. If yes, then let us know in the comment box below. And who do you think is the most overrated player of all time? Let us know. If you want to see more of such videos, then do like and subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to not miss any videos. See you in the next one, and until then, goodbye.